Good morning. You're watching Business World Live. I'm Danie Laurel. It's the start of a new trading day, but first let's kick off with our banner story. The Finance Department says imports of COVID-19 vaccines will be exempted from taxes and duties. Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez said the importation of the vaccines will be included in the agency's Mabuhay lane, where tax and duty exemptions will be processed within 24 hours. This would be faster than the current processing time of 3 days. The tax perks will be included in the guidelines on the implementation of a so-called one-stop shop for international donations and government-procured vaccines. The guidelines are currently being drafted by the DOF, the DFA, the DOH, and the Bureau of Customs, as well as the FDA. Finance Assistant Secretary Maria Teresa Habitan said the exemptions will result in around 14 billion pesos in foregone revenues from VAT. That is based on 75 million doses of vaccines priced at 1,545 pesos each. The palace has earlier announced that 600,000 doses of donated SINOVAC shots will arrive in the country on Sunday. The government is now looking to roll out the vaccination program by next week. Earlier this week, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez said the Philippines is offering to pay more to get earlier vaccine deliveries. Galvez told President Duterte that only 5.1 million of the 161 million doses expected for the year will arrive in the Philippines in the first quarter. Welcome to the last trading day of February. Quick check on how Wall Street performed overnight. You can see there quite a slump. The Nasdaq down by 3.5%. The S&P 500 as well down 2.5%. Over in Asia, let's see how the pain is going. It seems to be the same way. Nikkei 225 down by 2 3/10%. Topix as well down by 1 7/10%. Taiwan's TAIEX as well down by 1 9/10%. Other things apart from equities retreating. Oil, for instance, retreated from its highest for more than a year. Traders are, of course, mulling depleting global inventories. But you've also got Bitcoin that traded below $50,000 again. Gold was steady after an overnight decline. Now, this all comes as cases exceed 112.8 million, but deaths, a big number here, that has now surpassed 2.5 million deaths related to COVID-19 worldwide. On the upside, you've got the vaccines. More than 218 million shots have now been given worldwide. And a very, very good bright spot here, the US is in the spotlight. Hospital admissions have dropped 72% over there. That was led by the oldest patients. So let's take a quick peek at our own local index and how that is going this morning. And not a pretty picture. We've slid quite sharply down to 6,700 levels. That's down a sharp 0.7%. Called it this follows a holiday and a pause yesterday, but also even before that holiday, we had already dropped to 6,750 levels. And then we had that Wall Street performance plus the rest of Asia also opening in the red. This seems to go against what Tina Ulang has mentioned, but of course, we're just at the beginning of the trading day. She is hoping, and she's a bit more optimistic, for a slight technical correction today. She did say that there is usually month-end window dressing that might be happening, that might be pulling up the local bourse. Of course, this comes after a lot of volatility. She says that what was Feb like? I'm going to pull out the 1-month chart for you guys so you can understand what I'm saying here. She mentioned that the PSI has been on quite a downward bias. You can see that sort of mountain peak on the 10th of February. And since then, we've just been on a decline. We're down by 2 3/10% in just 1 month. She said that most traders have looked towards third liners with the index on a downward bias. Retail trading activity in particular has touched a high of 12 billion pesos at one point. Of course, what is the culprit here? AB Capital mentioning that investors are quite cautious that this month, at least, or the past month, as of course all of these issues on the vaccinations were being questioned. Regina Capsulis Lumlingan meanwhile says that month on month we underperform due to the net foreign selling. I just want to take a quick peek at the leaders and laggards over the past 1 month or the month of February. You can see a couple of banks actually leading the charge, with Metro Bank up by 7 and 8 tenths of 8%. Meanwhile, you've also got some holding firms here, LTG Group and Alliance Global. They have been leading the pack since the start of January. But on the downside, you can see the retailers, consumer stocks still slumping, led by URC. That's down by a hefty 14.5% in just the past month, together with Robinson's Retail and Pure Gold, all again consumption stocks. The vaccine saga is still what investors and the general public are holding their breaths for. And to give us an update of how the private sector has been pitching in, we have with us Joey Concepcion, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship. Good morning, sir, and welcome back.
Good morning. Good morning, Dan.
Sir Joey, quick update on how many doses you have secured, which ones, and for when. I think the third question is the big question here, plus what ongoing talks you have right now.
Okay. Last year, we secured 2.6 million of AstraZeneca vaccines. And then this year, we secured the balance of about 15 million. So the total AstraZeneca vaccines that are arriving is about 17 million doses. May and June, that will be the 34 companies that ordered first. It's about 2.6. And the balance will arrive in the third quarter. That is together private sector, about 340 companies, and LGUs, 39 LGUs. Total of 17 million. So that's definite. There is no delay, according to the CEO, Lotus Amin of AstraZeneca. We also helped Rigrazon of ICTSI consolidate smaller orders for Moderna. I think Moderna is bringing in 8 million doses. That should be expected sometime also the third quarter. And at this point in time, we just launched the Novavax vaccine of Faberco. They are a U.S. biotech company, and that's also going to be distributed by Unilab. So basically, the Dose of Hope, Go Negocios Dose of Hope, which started last year, is supporting all these three vaccines. And Novavax is right now the only one with a supply line, and the response from the private sector is quite good. And most of the companies that are looking at these vaccines are now the small and medium enterprises. No? Many of the large companies have secured their vaccines already with AstraZeneca and Moderna. But there might be some large companies that may still get Novavax for their employees, the family members of the employees. No? So that's still open. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we should complete this whole Novavax private sector orders with Unilab and Faberco.
Okay, sir, news point here is that AstraZeneca is no longer taking new orders due to supply constraints. You mentioned that this was a good, option for us, particularly because of the price points of AstraZeneca. Will Novavax be the same, and will they actually have enough supply to meet your targets?
Well, AstraZeneca is an exception of all the pharma companies because basically it was a no-profit program. And that was excellent because it was at $5 per dose. And that's why we could afford to donate half of what we purchased to the national government for the frontline workers. But for Moderna and Novavax, these are not for, these are already for profit by the pharma companies, of course. So the government does not expect any donation from the part of the private sector. Now, with regards to Moderna, of course, that's I believe that's at about $35 per dose, and so that's about $70 for 2 doses. But that's an end-to-end from the purchase of the vaccine to the actual execution. Novavax is also the same, but it's much cheaper. We're looking at about 800 pesos, thereabouts, 800, 900 pesos per dose. So that's about 1,600. So if you relate it to the AstraZeneca, in the case of AstraZeneca, the private sector had to donate half of what we had purchased to the government because of this good program, and we wanted to share it with them. It's about the same price. But of course, in the case of AstraZeneca, we got more doses and we helped the government, especially the medical frontliners. So all of these three vaccines are scheduled to arrive. Novavax has ample allocation for the private sector.
Mhm.
And I don't think we will be able to consume the full allocation for the private sector at this point in time. No?
Sir, are they already applying for EUA or FDA approval? And is there an indemnity clause that needs to be approved?
All of this, we actually, when we started the AstraZeneca Dose for Hope program, we established the first tripartite agreement with Secretary Charlie Galvez. No? So the pharmaceutical company, the private sector, and the national government. Under that tripartite agreement is the indemnification clause, which all pharmaceutical companies will want. And now the Senate is passing the indemnification law, which is very important, which covers even what we purchased last year. So all of these vaccines that will be coming in will be covered by this indemnification law.
Okay, sir, is just quick comment on whether 500 million is enough as an indemnity fund to cover all of our vaccine requirements.
Well, I hope so, and I think so. I'm hoping that this, from what we see all over the world, as remember, we have great visibility with AstraZeneca and Moderna right now, and it seems to be a very safe vaccine and quite respectable efficacy. In the case of AstraZeneca, and the second dose, it goes as high as 80+%. In the case of Moderna, of course, in the 90s, and Novavax is somewhere in the high 80s as well. No, so the private sector really chose the best vaccines that we believe that will really protect our economic frontliners.
Okay. And sir, last question on the vaccine issue. What about cold storage logistics? Is the private sector in any way contributing to the government's efforts in terms of logistics? How are you coordinating all of this?
Well, as you know, Moderna is an end-to-end, so I believe that they are going with Swellig to handle the logistics, and I believe in the case of Novavax, it's going to be Unilab, and maybe I'm told that they will also approach Swellig. In the case of AstraZeneca, since we just purchased the vaccines, we basically are in discussions right now that the private sector is willing to cover the cost of the logistics. So we are now in discussions with Zwelig, among others, to secure this. No? So we want to make sure, of course, with the approval of DOH and all of this implementation, you need DOH approval. But initially, the government was supposed to and is supposed to pay for the implementation from logistics all the way to the vaccination. But we would like to maybe take that cost on because we want to ensure.
Sir, I think we lost your audio. There you go.
Is going to be very critical.
Okay, so private sector chipping in at least and helping out when it comes to the logistics in terms of cold storage. So let's take a step back and talk about the state of MSMEs. You were doing quite a lot of programs, especially when it came to testing during the beginning stages of the lockdown. What are you now doing to help them? And do you think that the stimulus has been enough to allow them to survive through last year? Okay, guys, I think we lost presidential advisor for entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion. We'll try to get back to him later on. Meanwhile, let's pause and check in on other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Meralco customers are likely to receive lower electricity bills in March. That's in light of the refunds ordered by the Energy Regulatory Commission. Last week, the ERC announced that it had ordered the power distributor to refund close to 14 billion pesos in over recoveries. That would take effect starting next month, and the total amount must be refunded within 24 months or until fully returned to power consumers. Meralco Vice President Joe Zaldariaga said the refund rate will be reflected as a separate line item in customers' bills during the refund period. Okay, we've got Sir Joey Concepcion back with us. Hi, sir. Sorry for that. I think you got cut off. Sir, okay, I was just asking about what your initiatives are now and your recommendations for the MSMEs in order for them to reopen. You were really advocating for increased testing. What's the update on that?
Well, as you know, the economic team was pushing for relaxing even the MGCQ further, no, and I think that is the right approach. But of course, the president said, "Let's wait for the vaccines," which is also a good move. And the vaccines, as I'm told, it's arriving this week. So with SINOVAC and hopefully COVAX with AstraZeneca, about 5 to 8 million should be arriving in March. So at this point in time, talking to one of the biggest financing companies, no, it seems that many micro, small are affected because uh, they were telling me loans below 500,000 are really a lot of people are unable to pay, no? But the loans that are in bigger amounts, these companies are able to pay. So you can see that the effect of the prolonged economic really problem is going to really affect our smaller entrepreneurs because their lines with the banks are not, you know, as big as what the medium and large companies have. And I believe that as the vaccines arrive, we should really open up the economy more. And that's why our goal is to really pursue all avenues. And in fact, we have just funded, no, just the other day, saliva PCR testing. It's
Mm-hmm.
what Red Cross is doing, but we're now putting it in an official research so that we can get the DOH to issue guidelines so that saliva PCR testing will be available to all the labs, provided that they're trained. And the advantage of this is the prices of PCR testing will really go down, the speed will be faster, and of course, the pain will not be there. So even if we are moving towards vaccine, giving all these vaccines to our employees and our citizens, you cannot stop the social distancing, the wearing of face masks, and the testing. This all has to still continue until we are able to see that the infection levels are dramatically going down. And eventually, as we wipe out the infection in this, I mean, the virus in this country, then that will be victory for us. Another challenge, Dan, is that while we are buying the vaccines, we have to bring up the level of confidence with our employees and our citizens that it is safe to take these vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're in war. We're being recruited to fight. We're not bringing a gun, but the only thing that the country is asking us is to vaccinate ourselves so we protect ourselves and we protect those who surround us. If we don't do that, then even if we have millions of vaccines here and the compliance will be only 50%, we're not going to win the war against the virus.
Okay, and finally, sir, before we let you go, with vaccines now coming, just in a few months for the ones at least in the private sector, and even Sinovac already arriving this week, plus pending reopening of the economy, is that enough for the MSMEs and the most vulnerable to get through this without additional stimulus?
Well, I believe that in the last quarter of this year, if our vaccines start coming in from May onwards, especially the third quarter, and COVAX comes in, that will bring a lot of confidence. Remember, 2022 is an election year. That is the biggest stimulus. When people start to spend behind election, that is the biggest stimulus. So the last quarter of the year 2021, which is Christmas, I believe that is going to be the chance for many of our MSMEs to really get back on their feet. Not maybe yet, at least cash positive. And that is when the economy should really fully open up. No? And that's why we are really putting a lot of pressure on the arrival of the vaccine. The implementation has to be really excellent, whereby we have the vaccines, but we're able to vaccinate so many people on a
Mm-hmm.
daily basis to be able to make sure by before the end of the beginning of the fourth quarter, many of our citizens are already vaccinated. Then you have the consumer spending because of election, and then you have the stimulus of the Create Bill and many other packages that the economic team is putting in. Then you have a great year in the year 2022.
Okay, masagapan muna yung virus, of course, with the confidence that needs to be happening there with the vaccine rollout in tandem. Thank you so much for those insights and that update. Joey Concepcion, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship and founder of Go Negosyo.
Thank you, Dan.
And that's a first look into the business day. Today is February 26, 2021. Catch Business World Live for the market closes at 3:15 p.m. today. I'm Danie Laurel, and we are One News.